2, 3! Now are you guys ready for some pinball and pierogies?
If you find out wrong, don't you know that you know it?
Like, to say it out loud, it doesn't make sense. Pierogies, music, pinball, like, weird formula, but it works.
And it was just this like bunker with pinball machines lining the walls.
I would say it's like an unofficial meeting grounds for like everybody in punk bands in Ottawa.
You know, a lot of people look at it as like a second home, you know.
It's innovative. We're doing things there, different things, and going about it different ways.
It's just got such a vibe to it, you know, like there's all these elements. I'm like, well, you have to go to Targ. Like, you have to go check that out. Go to Ottawa and go to Targ and like look at what they're doing, you know.
I love to book shows at Targ and like bring bands to Targ because they always have a good time. And it's like a gem of Ottawa.
It feels like you have a place to go when you don't really fit in anywhere.
Definitely all the misfits do go there. And misfits work there, so birds of a feather flock together.
And they know how it is because they're all artists themselves. You know, they've all, like, gone through the struggle.
The stage here is this high off the ground, literally. Like, it's not fancy and it's not a big deal, and the PA is basic, and there's a nice thing that you can learn about all these people and all these bands that play and all these events that happen just from kind of that simple moment. And then you become really, like, you become the best of pals sometimes with people that I would probably never meet otherwise. It becomes really crazy and magical.
Today, I'm ordering the mandatory closure of all non-essential workplaces in the province of Ontario.
We've been talking to a number of business owners, and I can just sense the frustration.
It's been permanent stress. The toll that it's taking on the small business economy has just been devastating. I mean, every single day, more and more small businesses are completely closing.
The restaurants and the bars that have been shut down, they had the most to lose. And they invested the most amount in PPE, plexiglass, making sure that their staff were safe, their customers were safe. So they had the most to lose. They took the most amount of precautions. They were targeted the hardest by the shutdowns. So it makes it incredibly frustrating for these people to run their business and to try and make a living.
I just think the owners, what they're going through right now, like just trying to keep this afloat, must be exhausting. And, you know, hopefully they can keep it up until this thing ends.
As people, we need to socialize, we need to be around each other. So to shut down the places where musicians congregate, where their social life is, you know, makes it very hard for bands to, and artists to grow and to get feedback and to just work at their craft, right?
I think being a place that we're able to give a platform to artists and stuff is a great thing, and when that's not allowed, the whole scene can suffer.
The music really brought people together. Now that that's gone, there is a little bit of an element of Targ that's like really missing.
And House of Targ was like one of the main venues for like things going on in my community, in the Ottawa punk community. So I just miss it.
I am definitely not optimistic live music's coming back. I'm not optimistic events are coming back anytime soon. 60% of small businesses in Ottawa were not going to make it. 60%. That is a ton of businesses that just aren't going to make it. To run a restaurant, a live music venue, a bar, a pub, whatever in that hospitality world you run, it's got to be next to impossible.
When this is over, you know, bands are going to start playing again, and if there's not places like Targ, you know, it's going to be really weird.
I mean, I feel confident in my community that something would come to fill that space, but it would feel like something is missing.
Yeah, like Ottawa needs it. Like, there's not anything like that here.
And it's not just like, hey, it's like one of the best barcades like in Ottawa. I mean, it's one of the best barcades around the world, you know, so.
Places like Targ need to be here. I think just for society's sake, there needs to be places for weirdos to go. We need that. If you take that away, we're just going to go to Starbucks and mess those up.
I feel pretty positive about it in a sense right now, because we've had such a wonderful support from the community for this place. We switched to frozen food, and we switched to an online shop for a while. We are finding ways to challenge ourselves and to motivate ourselves to keep going towards something that we love.
There's a lot of stress and a lot of work behind it. I do feel we're going to come out of it. I think these small businesses can grow as long as they can stay afloat until then. That's the issue, is how long can you maintain at a 25% capacity. I know there'll be a lot of very happy people the minute somebody steps back on our stage to play some music.
When you play pinball, like 80% or 90% of the people that I talk to go like, well, the goal is to just not let the ball go down the middle. And the goal is actually totally different. The goal is like, hit this thing, get this thing happening so that you can move to this next level and open this whole another door in the machine and all these other, like there's so many more points to it. When the ball comes down and you lose the ball, 90% of the time the game will be like, I'm gonna give you the ball back because like you didn't do that great. And if you leave the machine and if you stop for those 2 seconds and give up, then like you're gonna miss it when it comes back down. But if you wait and if you're patient and if you don't give up, then like it all comes around. It comes back to you.
It's a challenge, but challenge accepted.
On September 13th, 1944, my grandmother, Maria Fatima Silva, was born in a small farm town in Azores, where they cultivated and fished for their own food. Later on, in 1978, she would journey to Canada, uprooting her family from Azores in search of a better life.
Foi por causa dos meus filhos terem uma vida melhor.
I was very young because my brother was the oldest. He came, I think he was about 12 years old.
It was fun, but the only thing that didn't surprise me was the weather. Like, it didn't surprise me because in Portugal, when I was a little kid, I was living in one island and it used to hail a little bit. So when I got here, it wasn't the same thing because there was hail and over here was flakes. That's what, like, I would look up in the sky and see a whole bunch of flakes coming down. It's not the same thing as in Portugal.
Then my sister was about, I think she was about 5 years old.
Snow was pretty cool, actually. It was pretty neat. We didn't have that. And being young was fun. Cold. And yeah, we loved it. It was fun. We played in it all the time.
And I was about 2, so it was obviously a recollection I don't remember. I was very young, but obviously knowing snow and not knowing snow is 2 different worlds.
Eu gostei muito, mas caí. Escorreguei. O teu pai ia para trabalhar e escorregou no snow, foi parar com as pernas no carro que estava no parquinho. Era laranjas para um lado, bananas para o outro.
Moving to Canada came with its fair share of challenges, including adapting to a whole new way of life.
Eu gostei muito. Fui trabalhar, eu gostei muito. No primeiro dia foi difícil, porque não conhecia o snow, depois fui às compras, depois caí, depois... A moda portuguesa. A moda daqui não vou muito, não. Eu não gosto muito. Gosto muito de peixe e gosto muito de comer fácil.
The language barrier is a challenge many immigrants fight, and that was a battle my grandmother and her kids weren't foreign to growing up.
Não foi difícil. Eu já estou aqui há muitos anos, mas ainda não sei falar bem o inglês. Mas compreendo, mas não sei falar. Mas só compreendo tudo. Vou ao store, vou ao banco, eu termino-me e corre tudo bem.
I would go with them to appointments and, legal stuff to try to translate for them as best as we could. It was the three of us. It was a big challenge because obviously we were learning English as well, but we were very fluent at home talking Portuguese.
Well, at the beginning, it was pretty tough because we had to do all the reading and all the translation and all the information, so it was pretty tough a bit, but we survived.
Well, it's kind of hard a little bit, but my dad, when he was working with other people in construction, he got a little bit about Italian and all that, but during those times he was picking up English slowly, but it was hard a little bit.
My grandmother was faced with many difficult decisions along her course towards a better life.
Foi por causa dos meus filhos terem uma vida melhor. Eu gosto muito do Canadá. E os meus filhos também gostam, os meus netinhos, todos. Eu não aprendi o inglês porque nunca fui à escola e não gosto. Mas eu compreendo. Eu compreendo. Mas foi malandrice. Eu gosto muito do Canadá. O Canadá tem benefícios que ajudam a gente e é muito bom.
My grandmother was faced with the difficult decision and the journey of bringing her family to a whole new country, a whole new way of life. But in the end, it was worth it. Canada's our home, and it always will be.
E tenho aqui os meus filhos, tenho os meus netos, e vai vir agora uma bisneta, depois vem um bisneto. E eu adoro.
Hello, my name is Samantha Green, and I live in Wakefield, Quebec, and I am the girl who ran away. It was May 15th, 2018. I had just finished my high school musical. We had worked on it all year. If I'm remembering that day correctly, I woke up at my grandma's house, Kitty. I remember formulating this plan. What if I tried running away to Virginia, which is where my aunt lives in Washington, D.C. At some point between being on the bus and actually getting to my school, I decided that I was going to do it.
I took Sam to the bus that took her to school, and then she called me later and said, I don't feel well, so I went back to pick her up at her school.
We stopped at a store along the way, and I had noticed that she had left her credit card information in the car. I didn't want to take it, so I just took note of the information on it, because you need a credit card to book a plane ticket. I know this.
Well, the fact that she had used my money to take the flight, her mother, I'm sure, was quite disappointed.
What was so terrible that she needed to go so far, that was the hardest thing for me. And also that I felt anger towards customs. I mean, how could a 15-year-old get through customs not once, but twice?
For me, it wasn't the end destination. It was really the journey that was the goal. To feel like an adult and to feel alone and just kind of escape my life, even just for a bit.
We maybe don't understand what you're going through, and I guess we probably never will. I don't even know if you understood what you're going through. Thankfully, you came to me, because in different families, the sequence of events would have been different and the repercussions would have been different.
It was really exciting in a very terrible way. It was like adrenaline. I picked the first flight out, which was at 8 o'clock at night. I went to the airport. I went through security and customs to go to the US. They didn't ask for any documentation. They let me right through. I got to my gate. When my flight was supposed to leave, it got canceled overnight because of bad weather. I had to find somewhere to sleep overnight with no credit card.
And they let her leave the airport by herself, a 15-year-old, and she goes to this dangerous hotel. So many opportunities where something could have happened to her is just, it's hard to talk about. It's scary. Scary.
It was an adventure, but she was only 15. Things could have been worse. She was always good in school, a good student. Samantha was in all sorts of different sports, plays, horseback riding. She did figure skating. I think it was just one of these wild things that we sometimes do as human beings. I've done them.
I got on the airplane and I sat next to this woman who just looked like she had her entire life put together, and here I was wearing yesterday's pajamas with mascara still streaming down my face, still crying, my eyes are red, and she's there with her pearls and her blazer, and the contrast was just so funny to me. I landed in Washington, D.C. The hardest part came, which is where I had to come to terms with what I had just done, and I also had to tell my aunt that I was there.
I don't remember what time it was. All I remember is I got a phone call from you saying, can you come and get me? I'm at the airport. And at first, it didn't really register what you were saying. And then you said, no, I'm here in Washington. Come pick me up at Reagan. Initially, I thought, oh my God, she's pregnant, or she's, something really bad happened. Because I called your mom and I said, Samantha's here. And she said, oh, stop joking. I said, no, she's here, right here.
How could that be? How could she be in Washington? I mean, she's a 15-year-old little girl.
Well, we couldn't believe it, and I didn't know about this because I thought she was still at her friend's house.
And I asked my sister to go and get her, and she did.
There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of trying to explain myself for a good hour, and I just had to write down why.
What hit me first was sadness. How sad did Sam have to be to run away? I thought that she would have spoken to me if there was anything that terrible going on in her life. We're very close. There's just the two of us. So I just couldn't comprehend how or why she wanted to run away from home. Sam ended up staying at my sister's place for about 3 days. Luckily, I had a friend who was a social worker. So I spoke to her and I said, how do I react? Do I punish her? Do I get angry with her? Or do I accept her back with loving arms? The consensus was just to open up my arms and let her come home and make her feel loved.
I did a lot of mental health work on myself, saw a few specialists, and in the end, I kind of just had to work things out for myself. I know this isn't the same for everybody. I just kind of took steps, of course, and I just worked my way out of it, and I've been good ever since.
The relationship did not change. We have a fantastic relationship. We share a lot of thoughts, and she has also a wonderful relationship with her mother.
As a mother, I thought I knew everything about her. I thought I knew all of her feelings. So if anything had happened to Samantha, I wouldn't be able to go on. I wouldn't be me. She's my world.
With a million kinds of flowers, only sweet smells in the air. Over 7 billion people, and I can take you anywhere. What's the point of running in circles? I don't care why you stay inside. No matter what, it won't be easy. So there's no use in trying to hide. Won't you come out of your cardboard box?
Love is important because it's everything, really. Well, I guess if you love yourself, you're going to take care of yourself. If you love somebody else, you're going to take care of them as well. And, so I guess it's the whole idea. Of course, I'm not an expert, so I can't give you too much advice. Hi. I'm Margaret Seed.
And I'm Jean Seed, her husband. Well, we're both in our 80s. And we've been around for a while. We've married 61 years. And no major battles. Her and some of her friends would go to the bowling alley for coffee. And that's where we met, actually, in the bowling alley.
Well, actually, our first date, we went to a New Year's Eve dance with Jane's brother and sister-in-law. And I'm not exactly sure where it was, but I think it was at Lansdowne, because they had lots of dances there at that time. I remember when he came to pick me up, and I remember he was wearing a long coat because it was New Year's Eve, because it was cold. And he had a long white scarf, which was hanging down there, and I thought, oh, does he ever look nice? I just remember that as plain as day. We got engaged on Christmas Eve of '58. I knew the ring was coming on Christmas Eve. On our wedding day, it was, first of all, because we were in Nova Scotia, it was foggy and first thing in the morning. And then the fog cleared up and the sun came out, and it was a nice, beautiful day, the rest of the day.
We're at the church, and I was standing there and I said, what in the hell am I doing here? But it was a great time. It was my dad's birthday as well, the same day.
We lived in Manadale first we lived in Manadale for a few years, and then in Trent Village for a few years, and then in Campbell.
We bought a It was a prefab type home, but then we put a few extensions on it. The house is on Bedell Road. Well, it's now Kempville, called Kempville. It was Oxford Mills before the amalgamation. It was, I can't even remember the name of the outfit, but they brought it in pieces and just put it up together. Had a local man and a friend from Ottawa and an electrician from Ottawa that I happen to know.
When we just moved in there, because the house wasn't completely finished, we had a trailer on the outside for a little while, and the children slept in there for a few nights, maybe a week or two or something. Then when it started to rain, they got wet, so so we had to bring them inside. I've been singing most of my life, singing in choirs all my life. We all like to sing in our family. Even our parents sang. Our church that we went to is an old church, but it's been all renovated from top to bottom, and it's a really beautiful church. Well, we were there every week, during the week sometimes, and on Sundays as well. I've been in that choir for probably 45 years, so that's my favorite spot. Well, 60 years ago, people were more committed when they got married. They got married for life, as far as everybody was concerned. You were getting married for life. And now I don't know. They don't even have vows. A lot of people get married, they don't even have vows. You know, we had vows that were important, so.
If you have no patience or no understanding, you might as well say goodbye. And that's what's happening these days. Like, marriage is supposed to be for life. Now marriage is maybe, we'll stay together for a while, but if I don't like what you're doing, I'm gone.
Well, I think the whole thing is a commitment, selfless commitment. I heard a priest say that from what he could see, the main problem was selfishness. Well, actually, the true meaning of love is putting other people's needs ahead of your own. That's the true meaning of love. That's divine love. Love is important because it's everything, really. Keeps life going.
Pollinators such as bees, flies, butterflies, and hummingbirds are declining both in numbers of species and individual animals. Multiple threats appear to be causing these declines, including habitat loss, pesticide use, and climate change.
We certainly know that there are native bees at risk. Specifically, the rusty patch bumblebee we know is listed as endangered, and especially monarchs. Monarchs are really characteristic and charismatic, and people remember seeing them in their childhood and now are fairly uncommon. We are seeing far fewer insects even splattered on our windshield than we did 20 years ago.
Monarch butterfly migration has dropped 80% in the last 20 years, and since the 1970s, the rusty-patched bumblebee has disappeared from almost 90% of its historic range. Canada's network of rights-of-way, roadsides, power corridors, transmission lines, and pipelines are often mown and sprayed with pesticides throughout the growing season, which have devastating effects on our native pollinators. The fact is, clipped, non-native grasses do not provide the food and shelter that pollinators need to survive.
If you mow your lawn, you're mowing everything down, so there's no chance for anything to flower, and it's the same on roadsides. When you convert it to something that's more natural, like a native meadow with a bunch of different species growing, then you have less space for a lot of those weedy plants. We have a couple of demonstration gardens that we've created with native pollinator-friendly plants and provide habitat for them as well. It also acts as sort of a seed source for the rest of our property.
The Canadian Wildlife Federation and many others are doing everything they can to change how these rights-of-way passages are managed. By converting open roadsides and pipeline passages into wildflower meadows, we are recreating the pollinators' pathways that once covered this land.
I learned about monarchs this year, really in depth. And you know what? It was quite heartwarming to release 3 monarchs from my finger this year that flew all the way to Mexico. Yeah, so that really triggered me to start a strategic mowing practice. And we did that this year in various spots throughout the township. So we'd mow a couple kilometers, we'd leave a swath of milkweed. And milkweed, as I come to find out, is a catalyst for a monarch to survive.
CWF has asked us to be a part of their program and start sharing our lessons learned and our strategies to getting to this goal of habitat restoration. We also want to start sharing our message for other municipalities to learn from, and sharing our story and our strategies to how to get there and what you can do as a municipality to improve pollinator habitat.
During her lobbying efforts to convince the first bee city in Canada to sign on, and I'm speaking about founder and executive director of Bee City Canada, Shelley Candle, she was quoted as saying, I love this, "It's really about beautifying the municipality. Let's look at grass as a desert. Let's look at dandelions as pollinator food. Let's think of things differently." So I'd like to welcome Shelley Candle to the microphone.
I know we love the honeybee, but it's really not the only bee around. Most bees don't sting. They don't make honey. They don't live in hives. They live in the ground. They live solitary lives. But they're all important pollinators. They're all important for our survival. And even though, insects are pretty much invisible, we really don't pay attention to them unless they bite us or sting us or annoy us. But they're what makes this world the place we live in. It greens the world. Without them, there's no food for us or mammals.
And one critical way that we're talking about of supporting them is to provide good quality meadow habitat. So native wildflower blooms, such as black-eyed Susan, purple aster, and wild bergamot, support our wild pollinator species. So when you create habitat for a monarch, you're creating habitat for all other pollinator species, including bees, flies, beetles, moths, wasps, and all others. And some of them are also at risk.
Give this to you and I can read this. It says, BCD Canada declares that Augusta Township, having adopted on June 15th, 2020, the resolution passed by council and signed by Mayor Malanka, has completed all of the requirements and is declared to be a bee city, the 40th in Canada. Woohoo!
There's a lot of families, there's a lot of people who care about the environment. Let's see what we can do here.
It challenges you to ask the question, not how can we be sort of less bad to the environment, but actually what would it look like if we were being good or great?
Being here in the room today and listening to the stories, I really see what's possible with humans and humanity.
New maps show 40% of Earth's land surface is now utilized for housing, farming, and roadways, revealing the extent to which human beings have changed the face of the planet. As land stewards, we can choose to invite life back into our neighborhoods by providing a healthy habitat for our native pollinators.
Why do we love ghost stories? What causes this fascination with death? This lust for darkness? Even if you do not necessarily believe in ghost stories, we are all haunted in some way. Haunted by our past, by ghosts of our failed relationships, friendships, or careers. A ghost story can help us get a sense of closure we may be seeking. But I feel if we linger on these ghosts for too long, the importance of the present becomes obsolete, and this holds us back. Perhaps we should focus on living our lives before the hauntings consume us. Deep in one of the many forests of Killaloe Township, Ontario, lies an urban legend that has haunted locals for many years. This is the legend of Buck Hill. During the early 20th century, loggers would come up to this road and stay during the winter. If someone had died while they were snowed in, they would bury them in the woods in unmarked graves. A member of the church once came to the road and deemed the land as unholy, as people were buried in unhallowed ground. The urban legend states a little girl went missing while looking for her lost dog in a winter storm. Her father, a logger, went out every night with his gas lantern to search for her. He never found her, and he eventually passed away. If you go up to Buck Hill Road late at night, yell "Daddy" 3 times, and flash your high beams, you will see the father's lantern glowing in the distance. Tonight, we venture to Buck Hill, in hopes of witnessing paranormal activity. We are joined by Katie Turner, a psychic medium, and the Canadian Supernatural Research Society. The Canadian Supernatural Research Society conducts paranormal investigations throughout Ontario and Quebec. As a seasoned paranormal investigative crew, they visit local homes and businesses and conduct paranormal investigations. With them, they have brought a great variety of devices to help us witness paranormal activity.
You come forward and talk to us? Hello, how are you? Are you glad we're here to talk to you? I'm glad, that's wonderful. So it spiked to 1.2, so we have an EMF spike of 1.2, which is still along the natural range, but the fact that there's been a change is a good thing. That means that they're using something to try and communicate. If you can't talk, can you light this up for me? Perfect. So this is an audio recorder, and we use this to pick up EVPs, or in other words, electronic voice phenomena. And basically they're disembodied voices or audible voices that we may not be able to hear during the recording, but after the playback we can pick up some evidence, and we're hoping it's going to be intelligent. So here we go. Is there anybody here who wants to communicate with us?
Are you male? What's your name? Are you female? Are you a child?
So that was...
Did you die here? Okay, let's try this.
In this sequence, we attempt to summon the father's spirit by calling Daddy 3 times and flashing our headlights, but we got no result. So, is the legend true? We can't say for certain, but we do know. If you're feeling skeptical, spend a night at Buck Hill Road. You may change your mind. This place is not for the faint of heart.
Have you ever wondered where your kindness stems from? Where we decide to make the choice and help others when they need it? I know I have. Growing up, I was always in the pockets of other people's coats in the most helpful way. It was something I didn't pay much attention to until recently at my great-grandfather's 100th birthday. How does someone who lived for over a century still make such an impact and have a strong influence on our generation? So to answer my question, I went to someone I could always confide in, my father.
Every time somebody was struggling or looking like they were having problems or even just needed an extra set of hands, you were always there. I was taught by my grandfather to always help. He always showed me everything to do. There's a very good possibility that I pass a lot of those qualities on to you as well.
From then on, I could not break my curiosity. I had to know his story. How does my kindness and passion relate to my great-grandfather? To solve this dilemma, I had the privilege to ask him myself.
I'm on my way to Pembroke to film. There's Cedar and Kiara. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited. Let's do it.
My name is Werner Streisman. Right now, 100, whatever you figured out. That's supposed to be 100, eh?
Yep. He shared many stories about helping out his community. One thing that stood out the most was his love and commitment for the Lions Club in Pembroke, Ontario.
My wife that time met a girl at Tubongo, and I met her husband. We became great friends. And he asked me one day, he said, how would you like to become a Lion member? Well, I knew about the Lion because my oldest brother was a Lion member. So I don't know, he took me to a meeting, and I liked this thing, so I joined. That was in 1972. I got the presidential pin, right where that in, from international headquarters in Oak Brook, state in the States, Illinois. That's where it's on there. And a lot of the others, through CNIB and Alliance, working with Alliance for all things to upgrade things and building our club up and everything. That's where I got all these tickets from all different clubs all over. Now, I know there's over 100 on there somewhere, quite a bit, you know. It's too heavy for me to wear already. Okay. I remember one time at a convention, we were right there, and I was sitting in a room, and there was a guy there, he said, talking about all the medals he had, this and that. He said, I got them out. And another lad was sitting there, he said to me, he said, you got yours with you? I said, yeah. He said, go and put it on, which I did. Of course, that shut up the other guy, you know. He didn't have as many as I had.
I admired how humble he stayed. He never went out of his way to boast about his rewards. Instead, he taught others like me how to achieve them.
After everything was over, and he come over to me, he says, how would you like to be president of this club? Oh, I said, I guess I could handle it. Well, that was it.
This journey of finding out my great-grandfather's beliefs helped me better understand my roots and realize older generations have a huge influence on our attitudes today. I remember my great-grandfather telling me how he wouldn't make it past 80, and yet, here he is, 100 and still striving for success.
I believe in God. He's helped me many, many times when I needed help. And when my day comes, I'm going to say goodbye to this world, I'm ready. I'm ready.
When I was growing up, not a lot of people really liked dubstep.
I've been listening to this music since I think I was in like 5th or 6th grade. It's hard to live life without music.
You never had a favorite artist, favorite band. How could you like live your whole life without having that influence in your life?
My name is Alex Chenier, also known as Chef Nier.
My name is Bailey Dalbois. I just go by Dalbois.
My name's Nick. I go by Nisotope.
My stage name is Comfort.
My name is Tarek Hamrouni, also known as Hamro, also known as Shelly Jr. and the Slap Chop. That's right, baby.
A live show experience is something that's extremely hard to describe. I remember my first show, it was like every single day I was either like super nervous or the next day like super confident and not nervous. It was like a big back and forth of that. And then once I got on stage, I was super nervous for like 2 seconds, and after that, everything just went away when I started playing the music that I love.
It's really fun to like go to shows and have that same energy with people around me.
Before COVID, man, shows were in a really great place.
No matter like who was hosting it or where it was, they just kept on getting bigger and bigger.
Not even just like seeing new faces that you'll see to 1 or 2 shows, but like seeing someone come to their first show, and then after that, they come to like 20 shows straight.
There were weekends where you weren't really sure which one to go to because there were so many things happening.
Yeah, like you don't feel any judgment coming from anywhere. Like you see people wearing so many different kinds of things. You see people acting so many different kinds of ways.
Performing becomes this like sense of expression where everything flows together and you really get to just be yourself, create something, and share that with the people.
I got introduced to all of this by being one of the people in the crowd.
Like I'm normally like a super energetic, pretty like woohoo kind of guy. Being up on stage, it's just that to 10. I'm like jumping around, going crazy, you know what I mean? So it's just the most me of me, you know?
When you get to the point where you're playing shows every weekend, it's easy to kind of like take it for granted and not realize how crazy it is that you get to do that for a living.
This COVID time, when it all first happened, no one really knew what was going on. No one really knew if we were taking a couple weeks off, if we were taking a month off.
It's a little bit like I got kicked out of my house, you know?
I had some really big shows upcoming. I just gotta like suck it up and just look to the future.
Usually when I'm creating, I'm getting pushed by the idea of like how a big crowd of people would react to that, right? So now it's like I've almost lost touch with that, where I don't even know how a crowd would react to anything right now. It is hard and definitely feels lonely sometimes, you know, not being able to see people as much, especially when you're very social or when you're used to being in a social setting every single weekend.
I don't really have anything to look forward to as much, so it kind of just affected that kind of like part of my mental state.
It's helped me find a lot of other passions and find time for other things that I've been wanting to do, just didn't feel like I could do it before.
Every single day you woke up, you came closer and closer to this realization that like, damn, this is gonna be gone for a long time.
It gets me thinking like, this is my dream, this is what I want to do. How can I now like still pursue my dream in the circumstances?
I'm really excited to see how big this industry can get once things get back to normal. Someone that would have only went to 1 or 2 shows a year might go to 4 or 5 shows a year now because they missed it that much. And then if they do that, maybe they get more connected with the scene and then want to keep coming and keep coming more. It is hard to stay motivated, but I think you just need to like go out and get inspired by other things. Just anything personal, try and translate that into your art. I think that's where the best source of inspiration can come. All the mixes that I'm working on are all like very like indie pop alternative type of stuff.
Some of the stuff, you know, I like to play, and some of the stuff being played in the local shows, it's not going to be your, you know, top 100 Billboard charting type of EDM. When things are able to happen again, it'll be day and night, the level of quality and like what we've been able to achieve because we've had time to really just hunker down and think and work and apply ourselves. I think everybody's got a lot to prove and everybody's itching to prove it, so that's what we can expect. We all know when everything gets back to normal, like things are gonna get crazy in the best way possible, but nobody knows when that's gonna be.
It's just looking to the future, because I know like eventually when times get better, those opportunities will be there, if not more opportunities. So it's just kind of like cracking down, making more music, getting a lot better at making music. And I want to keep trying, even if I fail. I'm someone who thinks like, if you fail, you should keep going. Failure is just like a hiccup. You'll eventually succeed. It might not be exactly what you're hoping, but I think you might get there. I'm just gonna keep trying, keep going until I can't anymore.
The first thing to come to mind when someone mentions Westgate is obviously the decline of the mall, I would say now, unfortunately. For so many years, it was a symbol of the progress of Ottawa as a city, and I think it just now, it's kind of, you know, a piece of the past.
It's not the glory of the Westgate that I remember. I mean, there's a couple of nice places in there that I would still go. I think the only shop I really remember from when I first came as a kid is Nettleton's Jewelers. Pretty much everything else has changed or moved or gone somewhere else, you know. It's still here, I'm still fond of it, but compared to what I remember, it's really changed.
It's sad to see it in its state that it's in, because for so many years it was sort of a vibrant mall, and in fact that's how it started life, was sort of the symbol of progress for Ottawa. So the Westgate Mall opened in 1955. After a long building process, it kind of grew and grew from a smaller project to a huge $2+ million thing. So the mall right now is right in kind of the heart of central Ottawa, right where Island Park Drive meets Carling Avenue. Back in the early 50s, it was in the middle of nowhere. It kind of put Ottawa on the map and moved them up a level in terms of the prominence of the city, and giving them that extra, you know, taking them from being a small town to sort of a city handling a huge mall like that.
The advent of the shopping malls and these big malls that have been part of our lives for a long time, that was a big deal. And it was a real adventure to go with your friends with a bit of pocket money or get a part-time job working in one of the shops, which I did.
On the main opening day, you know, the place was full. There's some photos of the day where there's cars, the lot's full. Everyone came out to see this new mall.
I've always loved this area. I loved going to school here. And Westgate was just a landmark, you know. When I was a younger child and my mother had just died, and my sisters and I used to come every Saturday. It was kind of a comforting ritual with our $2 allowance and wander around Westgate for 3-4 hours. So there was a kind of an emotional connection that it was a place of comfort and familiarity for us. I had 2 jobs here. I had a job in the late 70s, and I had another job here in a different shop in the early 80s. And so I spent quite a bit of time at Westgate, you know, a number of years ago.
Malls are going to be a lost cause just because of the online shopping. I think that it's just putting a lot of businesses out. It's so much easier to sit at home and order and get what you want and have it delivered.
Things are changing. It just hasn't had the ability to be as vibrant as it was. This area needs to be revitalized a bit. And so I'm interested to see what the new development's going to look like.
They're already working on the first condo that's going up where the Monkey Joe's used to be. Eventually there'll be, I think, 3 or 4 more towers that are going to go in and make it fully residential. You know, there's promise of some ground floor commercial and some other promises, but when you're in an era where we're looking to add more housing and put more living spaces into the community, this is an ideal spot to do it. We all grew up, you know, going to malls and having that fun of, you know, going with your parents or going with your friends. That's something that's slowly being eroded away, I think. It's a piece of us that'll be lost. It's very cold, it's very unsocial, and unfortunately society's headed that way in a lot of ways, and the mall is just one more symptom of that.
I just feel that local community retail is so important for us to stay healthy and well. We've got to be connected to people and feel that we have just that sense of community and neighborhood. And for me, that's what Westgate really represented.
This is my Minolta Maxim 7000,
loaded with an Ilford HP5 Plus black and white film. I am Nikki and I shoot film in 2010.
For me personally, I find it very interesting. The process itself, because you actually have to work for it. It's intimate in a way because you have to take the photo. Before taking a photo, there are multiple steps to actually get the photo to look nice, which makes me stop doing everything else. I just need to focus to that one shot, basically. Just very fulfilling for me. Finishing a roll, then developing the film itself, and then actually seeing the photos go live, it's pretty fulfilling. You have to finish a roll of film, and then after that you have to unload it from your camera. First step is to load the actual film on the canister in the developing tank, and then that's where the magic happens. So we'll put the chemistry in it, we'll agitate it. It's a bit of a longer process, probably will take 6 to 10 minutes for the whole chemistry. Just take it out from the canister and then hang it. You let it dry for 3 to 5 hours, and then you'll see your actual photos on the film itself.
But the most intimate feeling for me in this whole film process is printing. When I expose the negative film to the paper using an enlarger and then putting it through different chemistries to develop, it's exhilarating. Because finally, after all those steps, there it is. The final print that tickled your brain wondering if it turned okay or not. Something that you worked for, which now you can look at and hold. I think it's very fulfilling.